Hi, everybody. Welcome to CN Live here on NRATV. I'm Bill Whittle, sitting in for Coley and Noir. He'll be back tomorrow, is my understanding anyway. He's a busy man. He gets around a lot and gets to shoot all kinds of cool things. How come I don't get to shoot cool things like Coley does? It's not fair. It's just not fair at all. In any event, he will be back tomorrow, and I'll be sitting in for him today, as I did yesterday. And as usual, we have all kinds of things going on in the bigger world that influences all of our handgun decisions and our choices and our freedoms and so on. You wouldn't think it would be that way. I kind of remember, like just very few laws, and one of them is the Second Amendment, but no, it just gets more and more complicated every day. So at least if we're going to get into that kind of legal weeds, it's good to have a couple people who are on our side, and certainly nobody better than our friend William Jacobson. He's here from Legal Insurrection. Bill, you there?
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you.
Good to see you. So let's talk about the Supreme Court nomination of Neil Gorsuch. I think pretty much every conservative and every freedom lover in the country felt a real sharp stab when Judge Scalia passed away last year. But Donald Trump's first nomination, Neil Gorsuch, seems like a pretty able replacement. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Well, that's definitely fair. I mean, he was selected through the Federalist Society group, which is very conservative. Been a lot of articles about the role that they played in the selection process. And so I trust their judgment. Obviously, we still need to vet him from a conservative point of view. But everything we've seen so far leads me to think that he's going to be a very good justice. Whether he's worthy of the Scalia seat, I think only time will tell. We'll have to see his record over 5, 10, 15 years. But from what we're capable of knowing now, he seems like a great choice.
I had a chance to sit next to Justice Scalia at a dinner one night, and that's the first time I've ever sat next to somebody who had 3 times my intelligence. He's just a shockingly brilliant man, very nice man too. Would you think it'd be fair to describe Neil Gorsuch as a constructionist, strict constructionist?
Well, I think he would describe himself that way, that he looks to the text of the Constitution and the text of various statutes, and that's what guides you, not necessarily what you want the result to be. And during his hearing today, I didn't watch the entirety, but I watched enough of it. Essentially, he was repeatedly telling senators, particularly Democratic senators, look, if you want a different law,
Do we still have your audio? I've lost you. I'm going to assume that we got it. Okay. Professor Jacobson, we're going to get back to you in just one second here. But what he was saying, I think, is absolutely germane, right? And this is basically my response to any Second Amendment issue. When I run into people who want to do something to take away handguns, I'm saying, look, if you really actually genuinely think that there shouldn't be any handguns in the country, then you need to pass a constitutional amendment, pass the 28th Amendment, and the 28th Amendment will simply say the Second Amendment to the Constitution is hereby repealed. And there you go. So if you don't like the law, that doesn't mean you don't get to not enforce the law. When you take an oath of office as a judge, as a congressman, or anything else, whenever you get any kind of that thing, you've got to enforce the entire package, whether you like it or not. I think we might have Bill back. Bill, are you there? Professor Jacobson, you there? Hello? I'm going to keep talking. In any event, I think this is the most germane issue of all when it comes to justices. It comes to the entire idea of justice, comes to the idea of law enforcement in America, comes to the idea of the Second Amendment, First Amendment, all of it. What it comes down to is this. This is the document. This is the document that was established, that created this greatest country in the history of the world. And when you take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, that doesn't mean you just get to defend the parts of the Constitution that you like and not pay any attention to the ones that you don't like. So it's just that simple. If you want to change the gun laws, then change the Constitution. Good luck with that, by the way. Good luck with that. Professor Jacobson, are you back? Have we got you? Is he there? Hey, Bill, are you with us from... Okay. Well, anyway, it looks like we're having some troubles with Professor Jacobson's connection, but that's the internet for you, And by the way, before we get too down on the technological problems that we still have occasionally all around the internet, let's not forget that it's the internet that's allowing us to have this conversation right now. And that may sound a little self-serving for me or for NRATV for that matter. But I talked about this briefly before, and I think it bears mentioning again. If you look at the history of civilizations, the rise and fall of civilizations, it's always built over the period of about 200, 250, 300 years. It's a slow, slow climb. And as that time period goes on, you're filled with people who are filled with patriotism, they're filled with sacrifice, they're filled with hard work, love of country. And as these civilizations get more and more powerful, there comes a point where every civilization becomes so powerful, like the Romans, for example, or the Greeks at the height of their powers, where they're really unique. No one can touch them. And you would think at that point, once the competition disappeared, that they would just go straight up into orbit. But that's not what happens. Once you have a civilization that powerful, the collapse comes very, very quickly. But here's the point I'm trying to make. This is the first time in the history of humanity ever that common people have been able to talk to one another and spread the word. As we were saying before, it's like if America's a city and the American citizens are on the wall of that city ready to defend that city with their lives if necessary, what we find is that it's not the common people on the wall, it's not the people with the weapons that give up. It's the elite. It's the people in the palace. It's the people downstairs. They open the doors to the city and in come the barbarians, and that's the end of that. But finally here we have a chance to speak to each other all across the internet, all across the world. And I think if it hadn't been for this internet, if everything I knew about Hillary Clinton I learned from CNN, I might have voted for her. But fortunately, we don't have to worry about that anymore. So back to the issue of justices and back to the issue of Neil Gorsuch. The question about Gorsuch, I think, is going to be pretty simple. For me, certainly, anyway. Very simple. Is he, in fact, a constructionist? And what that means, obviously, is does he revere the Constitution as a document that is actual law? It's not just something suitable for framing that you put on the wall next to Washington crossing the Delaware. It's not just an archive or some artifact of our founding. It's not just a pretty picture that says we the people. It's the law. It's law. And if you've got a justice who understands that this document is not just paper, it's the law, and is willing to interpret subsequent cases on the basis of that law, that guy's pretty much okay with me because I believe very, very much in the Constitution. Professor Jacobson, we'll try again. Are you with us? Hello? Well, hope springs eternal here at NRATV, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just give you one more time. Professor Jacobson, you out there? Apparently not. So, in any event, okay. Well, looks like we're going to have to give that one up for at least for this segment. We'll try and get it back in our next segment. But this is, in fact, the issue. So why is the Supreme Court so important? Why does the appointment of somebody like Neil Gorsuch matter so much? Well, there's a pretty simple reason for that, really. If you think about it, we all, most Americans, most leftists anyway, say that we live in a democracy, but we don't. We live in a republic. And there are, in fact, out of the 320 million Americans, there are probably 435 people out of that 300 million. 435 of them live in a democracy. Sorry, 535. 435 members of the House of Representatives plus 100 senators, they live in a democracy. They get to vote. If the left can influence those 535 people, they can pull off anything they want to, including abridging all of our rights. But the left can't do that. You see, their ideas are not popular enough, certainly not popular enough to do something like a constitutional amendment prohibiting the use of firearms for individuals. So if they can't influence the people of America, and they can't even influence the Congress of America, what can they do to get their way? Well, as it turns out, if you've got a Supreme Court that is overstepping its boundaries to the degree that this court has for 50 years now, then all the left has to do is not win half of 300 million people. They don't have to win half of the Congress and the Senate. They only have to win half of the Supreme Court. If they can get five people out of 300 million people to agree with them, then because of this out of control court, they can do pretty much anything they want to. And I think our founding fathers would roll over in their graves if they saw the degree to which the people of the United States are subject to the whims of not only of five people in black robes who are now determining pretty much our entire society. We'll get back to that. We'll try and reach our guest too in a minute, but we will be back just after this short break. You're watching CN Live here on NRATV, and we'll be back in a moment.